Let's talk Tanya for the first of Cheshvan of a leap year. So in the previous days in the Tanya, we've talked about how everything is being created and recreated by God constantly. Nevertheless, the divine energy comes down through the worlds, and ultimately, in the diaspora, the energy enters into the 70 archangels of the nations of the world, and they are klipa. And this is the idea of galus hashchina, the exile of the Shechina, because the Shechina, which is the divine creative energy, enters the klipa in order to create the world. Now, this also plays itself out, a similar idea, in a different area. And that is that, as we explained yesterday, in the godly soul that the Jewish people possess, also every one of us, we have 10 attributes which are rooted in the 10 attributes of God, the 10 holy attributes. So we are, so to say, the representatives of holiness over here in this world. Non-Jews, on the other hand, also have souls, but their souls are rooted in the archangels of whichever respective nation they come from, which means that their souls are made up of klipa, and they also have 10 attributes in their souls, but these are 10 attributes of klipa, meaning the power or the force that conceals God. And just like we have galus hashchina, generally speaking, the energy of God enters into the 70 archangels, and so to say, is controlled and dominated by the klipa. The same thing also we have now during galus, during our exile, that the Jewish people, we are under the authority of, and we are controlled by the non-Jews. And this is another manifestation or expression of galus hashchina, because after all, we are the representatives of the Shechina here in this world. And when we are in exile amongst the nations of the world, that is another example of galus hashchina, and that is why during this exile, so the non-Jews enjoy prosperity and acclaim, all of this because of the galus hashchina. The souls of the Jewish people that represent the Shechina are in galus, are in exile in the hands of the non-Jews. Now there's a verse in Koheles which says, Asher shalat ha'adam ba'adam l'ralei, which translates literally as that the person dominates over or controls the person, l'ralei, but it's to the detriment of that person. Or to put it differently, there is person A who controls over person B, but ultimately that is to the detriment. It is to cause the downfall of person A. And the way that Arizal explains this in the writings of the Arizal is that we have the person of Kedusha, of holiness, for reasons that are beyond the scope of this conversation. Holiness is also described as a human being, having human form. And then there is the person of Klipa, the powers of unholiness. Now, Asher shalat Adam ba'adam, which means Klipa, the forces of unholiness, they control the forces of holiness, which is the galus hashchina, the exile of the Shechina that we've talked about up until this point. But it is l'ralei, it is a trick, it is a ploy, because ultimately, this is for the detriment of Klipa, or to put it in different words, it is to strengthen the powers of holiness. How is that? We'll find that out as we proceed in this chapter. And with this, we've actually concluded today's Tanya. In tomorrow's Tanya, we're going to recap where we are, because again, it's a long chapter. And also, finally, we are going to introduce the passage of the Tzava Sarivash, the book of the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, which the opponents of Hasidim objected to, and which actually this letter is intended to defend.